Okay, just real quick. Just a few minutes ago, I was trying to look for a book, the title of a book that I knew I had read, but I wasn't sure if it was still in my library or not. And then I got to thinking, I was like, I shouldn't be the only person who actually knows the contents of my library. So, take a tour of just the last few years of reading that I've done with me. Not all of these I've completed. The ones that don't say finished obviously weren't finished. But some of them I've read multiple times, like The Pagan World, Where the Conflict Really Lies, and Eve, I hated. Flavius Josephus I've read twice. I've read The Antiquities of the Jews twice. The Witch was a great read, one of my very favorites of the last year. I've read all of these. I gave up on a second read of Answers to Job because I couldn't generate any interest in my commentary on it for YouTube. But this is still in this year. This calendar year we just finished. I would have enjoyed finishing Persian Fire, but my life. These books that we're getting into now are what I was listening to right as I was being evicted. The Ancient Celts and the Cimmerians, I've read twice. Some of these locks were from when they were free. I threw them in here just in case I needed something to read. And that's the joke that I wanted to let you in on as we're doing this together, is that I'm the kind of person that I didn't grow up with TV like you did, so I don't really have any experience of the 1,000 channels and nothing good on, right? I don't have a problem with that. In fact, the only times that I really get agitated with life are when I'm unable to find anything that I just don't know anything about. So finding interesting things on like Netflix or Amazon Prime or cable TV was always easy for me because it was all new to me, even into my 30s. But I'm sitting here like, I don't have anything to read. I miss my Audible subscription because I always had something new to read. And yeah, didn't mean to do that. I've read the 2 books I've read my 2 tokens from this month already, and so there's a certain amount of like, do I really want to read Why Liberalism Failed? I hate those books. Or like Homegrown and Waco Rising, and there's another one in here just titled Waco that I may have already passed. That it's like, I was reading those because I was putting together a comprehensive work of research on cult in the West and how bad it is, and the through line of what the occulted and now esoteric or neo-pagan religions actually believed, and what they actually did, how they actually did worship, and how those things have stayed into modernity and have infected liberalism. And there's just no point in reading that stuff. I'm not particularly curious, and there's no point if you guys won't show up when I go to tell you what I've found. Nobody else does this stuff, intellectual work. Nobody else does it for free. And I guess you don't understand the way that these books and these great courses, lectures were created was by publishers who already wanted the writer to write on that subject because they were his university, and if he doesn't write on that subject, they're going to revoke his tenure. It's called publish or perish, folks. This is still this year. In fact, this doesn't even go back to July yet. This is what I was reading in September. I chose not to finish UFO of God, and I did finish the Stargate Chronicles. In fact, I didn't read all this Nazi stuff. I finished They Thought They Were Free, and it's called like Hitler's Aristocrats or something, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I didn't read any of this Edgar Cayce because I couldn't take it. I couldn't take how stupid it all is. It's so stupid. But that 10 books that screwed up the world is something that I would like to do an expanded version on. I would like to read the 10 books side by side with what he said, and I haven't read all 10 of the books, and I would like to see if his claims are true. I'm not doing it for free. I want to study Martin Luther too, but he's after Rob, so I don't need it except for my personal interest. So these locked ones were free. I've read everything Father Gabriele Amorth, famously the Pope's exorcist. I read everything he had to write, everything he wrote, everything he had to say. Now I'm getting into last year. I was reading this Orisha's Goddesses and Voodoo Queens the day. I finished it the day I went into, I call it lockup, but the day that I was admitted into HRSA. This life and work of Mark Twain was really good. And then I didn't actually read any Mark Twain. It's a lot. And then like this is just the last year. Yeah, there are a lot of these. And this part I got ambitious. And then I got really depressed. Because, HRSA lockup was coming. And then after HRSA lockup, I spent my time in therapy, and 9 months of that calendar year, was spent just trying to remain out of prison, frankly. But we're still going. We're not even close. This is just they're not even close to what I'm being done with what I wanted to show you. This was just a year. I don't know why it says I haven't. I read this copy of the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. Tucker Carlson is not a good writer. Not an interesting writer. Those books were not interesting. Bede's a good writer. Eusebius was a good writer. St. Anselm was a good writer. This one, Race Trumps Merit, was really good. Highly recommend. So is War is a Racket and The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Those are both very good books. Why Materialism is Baloney was awful. Terrible. So was Goddesses and Every Woman. Language Families of the World is one of my favorite listens of all time. The Horse, the Wheel, and Language is a hugely important work. Very good. Very good. Told you I've read Irenaeus. That's only books 1 through 3, but I told you I've read it. I've read this What is Jewish Thinking, Transformation of Israelite Religion, Beginnings of Judaism, Introduction to Judaism. I effectively have an undergrad in Judaism. That Anarchist Handbook was awful. I didn't finish it. It was terrible. I didn't read the Book of Five Rings. I couldn't bring myself to read any more Robert Greene. I find him highly annoying. Guns, Germs, and Steel is boring and obvious if your head isn't lodged firmly in your colon. Trans by Helen Joyce is very good. The Unabomber Manifesto is, the work of an idiot, of a very stupid person. Edward W. Robertson is my favorite author. I've been too depressed and too nothing matters to read his most recent work in that series. 13th God was very good. Claudius and Claudius the God are works that informed my worldview, but also my literary work. The Chronicles of Prydain are the books of the Black Cauldron, the Disney movie. And then I'm probably going to end up in here reading Joseph Campbell. The Heroine's Journey, awful. Just awful. Both of them. The Mabinogion, however, is one of my favorite works of literature. Not that you would think I'd read it. I think I actually own like 3 copies of that. Told you I've read Categories by Aristotle too. That How to Tell a Story by Aristotle. They took writings, they took Aristotle's writings or teachings and turned them into a self-help book. The DMT and the Soul of Prophecy and the DMT, the spirit molecule, they're fucked up. Annoying. The Black Sun, the Alchemy of Darkness, don't do that. Don't do it. The Crystal Cave wasn't good. It's a Merlin book. Neither was Mysteries of the Middle Ages. Inventing the Middle Ages was annoying. Le Morte d'Arthur is good. It's unfinished, though. That's a bummer. It's also a bummer that the European medieval tradition, they didn't do the eponymously or pseudonymously, pseudonymously finishing unfinished works. So, 1001 Nights is 300 years of pseudonymous authors. It's a bummer that none of the Arthur works did that. The Arthur works all tried to be works of idiosyncratic genius. And now we're getting back to 3 years ago. Cara Cooney was one of my favorite people until I read her work. She doesn't have anything to teach. I can't bring myself to finish Communion by Whitley Strieber. I read the sequel to it, but somehow I can't do it. I've finished this Robert E. Howard's Conan the Cimmerian Barbarian multiple times. Same with the Bhagavad Gita. I haven't read any Clark Ashton Smith. It's funny because I wrote about him in the journals very recently. I should probably read that Umberto Eco, How to Write a Thesis. I bought it. Umberto Eco, that Foucault's Pendulum is also a work that informed my literary work. Hugely inspirational to me, in large part because I've read it 4 or 5 times and it gets to the end and I still have no idea what the fuck just happened in any of it. Dominion. Tom Holland, Dominion and The Shadow of the Sword, those are 2 of the best history works ever written. Kat insisted that I buy these David Ellefson books. I've never even downloaded them. Whatever, if that's what... This philosophy of religion is awful. It's awful. The work of a dumb person. I should read this Palace of Illusions because it was written by a female, but I think it was modern. I think it's not. I think I bought it. Well, no, I think I downloaded it when it was free, thinking that it was an ancient or at least a medieval work, and I think it's modern. And I've read the Nicomachean Ethics and Metamorphoses, but for whatever reason it shows it as having not been read. I didn't finish Dracula. I found it painfully boring. And it's going to say that I haven't read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius because I've read it like 3 times. I found that Mitch Horowitz, I found him, this Neville something or other, I find that guy annoying. And I told you I've read Isis Unveiled. I've read Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine, the first volumes. I haven't read the second volumes because 20 plus hours of reading and it's all bullshit. So I chose to read her smaller works, like the Introduction to Theosophy and The Voice of Silence, which is also bullshit. She's annoying to me now. And I've read that Proclus, Elements of Theology. I don't know why it says I haven't. I find Ray Bradbury annoying. I have not completed the Summa Theologica. Look at this, 52 hours, and I think it's 7 parts. I'm not going to scroll down that fast. I read Holy Blood, Holy Grail when I was in high school. This When God Had a Wife is hugely inspirational. Not inspirational, it's a cornerstone of my actual worldview. I didn't read Legion, the sequel to Exorcist, and The Exorcist, the book is okay. It's whatever. And I haven't finished the Enneads by Plotinus either. Let's be real with you, I haven't finished it. It's too long, and there's no reason, no one to talk to about it anymore. What am I going to do, call up some PhD? You guys don't care. You're not interested. You don't show up when I read it. You don't show up when I talk about it, when I explain why you should read it. Daphnis and Chloe is one of my favorite stories. I did a dramatic reading and actually paired it with the soundtrack to the opera. I did like the first 2 sections of it, maybe the first 3, maybe only the first one, and got 0 views, so I just never revisited it. This is The Unbearable Lightness. Now we're back into 2020 and I've shown you what I wanted to show you. That's what I've been working on for the last 4 years, is getting through that Herculean pile of books. But there's more. Pierce Brown is a great fiction writer. And Phil K. Dick is probably my favorite fiction writer. Scanner Darkly was awesome. Crazy book. But I was reading a lot of fiction in 2020. I hate Imagica. I don't like Clive Barker. How the Irish Saved Civilization was a really interesting book. Really interesting story. And for those of you who think I hate women, I keep looking for powerful, interesting women. I've got the books about what women were like in the ancient and near modern world. That The End Is Always Near by Dan Carlin is why I don't like him anymore. It was the biggest disappointment I've ever read. I mean that. I really, as long as he worked on it and as much as he talked about it on his podcast, I really thought it was going to be something that was going to shake me out of my shoes, and it bored me. I didn't actually finish The Man in the High Castle. And this Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is annoying. It was bad. I finished it. It was stupid. So I actually had it unfinished. Jim Mars is a hilarious, insane person. And then this is going back into 2018, 2019. I wasn't able to read as much back then because I had a job. I couldn't afford it. While I was living with that woman, she bankrolled any book I wanted to buy. So I bought as many books as I thought I could justify. And I skipped out on a lot because this is a good place to stop. Any more than what I did would have just been unethical, would have been theft. Because I didn't have, obviously, some of the books I bought, some of the books I downloaded, I never had any intention of getting to. I never had any intention of needing to. And I always planned for her to not have to ultimately bankroll it all. Ultimately, I planned for you guys to get me out of that place the way I'm begging you to get me out of this one. I'm not gonna stop the plan. You don't understand. This is 5 years in the making. I've been homeless for 5 years, living on the kindness of strangers. This is just the first 4 months that I've lived in a tent. So there you go. Now you know a little bit about me. That's my reading list from the last 4 or 5 years. It's actually not all of it. Look, I'll just do it real fast. Look how many there are still left. These I read. Before I moved in with her, I read them all because I bought them. Jordan Peterson is very good. And these are just the audiobooks. These aren't even the actual hard copy books that I've read. And if one of y'all was a friend, you would remind me that I need to get my ghost book back from my therapist. She has all my good, expensive books. All my good, expensive physical copies that I got to read for this, to help with your spiritual and moral education. To help you learn how to read, even, is what the Andrea Perrin is for. Can't get any of you to shut the fuck up. Tuition's free. It was. And then I made it all not free. But it's like $10. Cheap. $10 a month. It's cheaper than Audible. And I was able to swing that. I'd like somebody to help me swing it now. Alright, well, I'm done bragging. Fuck you guys, I'm better read than you. Take care.